Well, this Saturday here in Nigeria's commercial capital, the Lagos East Senatorial gets underway. 5 local government areas that make up the Lagos East Senatorial District are Shomolu, Koshofe, Ikorodu, Epe, and Ibejuleki. Well, the 2 major candidates for the election are Tokunbo Abiru of the ruling APC and Babatunde Gbadamosi of the opposition PDP. Now, Rise News reached out to both candidates, but only that of the main opposition party responded. So let's welcome to Newsday Babatunde Gbadamosi of the PDP. Babatunde, glad to have you join us on Newsday.
Good afternoon. It's nice to be here.
Good, nice to be here. We're going to have to find a way to do this because Abiru is not here. But let me start with this. Why should any Lagosian vote for one who cannot stay in one party but runs when the waters are troubled? And then what about this issue of you falsifying your WAEC results? Your opponents are also accusing you of making a false declaration on oath about your work experience and that you never participated in the mandatory NYSC program.
Okay, I'm going to take those questions from the last one. That I did not participate in the so-called mandatory NYSC program is because I am not a graduate. I have said this over and over again, but it seems my opponents, choose what to hear and how to hear it. I've said it time and again that I dropped out of the Lagos State University because of a traumatic incident that I have related on air over and over again, but they just won't hear it. They're more interested in smearing than hearing.
If you don't mind
let him pick up then the other parts of the question.
Okay.
The question, the idea that I falsified my WAEC certificate, I think that shows that some of these people may have gone to school, but they didn't learn anything there. WAEC, traditionally, never puts the subjects that you fail on your certificate. It actually says it on the back of the certificate. It says very clearly that the subjects are graded from 1 to 9, but only from 1 to 8 appear on the certificate, meaning any subjects that you fail do not appear. Now, the crux of their case is that 5 subjects appear on the certificate issued by WAEC, but that when they went to the WAEC website, they saw that I actually took 8 subjects. It just shows that perhaps their own certificates might be forged. You might want to ask questions about what schools they went to and so on. I mean, we know who their principal is and what schools he claimed to have gone to without having any classmates. So it's not new. I mean, if they forge certificates, then they might think that everybody else does the same.
I hope that's not an allegation. But you mentioned that there... No, that's fine.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, I was pulling your leg in a manner of speaking. But yeah. You mentioned that they're more interested in smearing than hearing. But if you don't mind my saying, it cuts both ways. Because I can see that there were allegations from your campaign team on alleged murder, as well as allegations from, I think, your PDP a man named Pierce about double registration. What purpose do all these allegations serve?
It's the fact that Mr. Abiru is registered twice on the INEC register. It is a fact. I don't think he can dispute that.
But that will be your word. That's why I said we'll find a way to handle, because that will be your word against his. Incidentally, he's not here.
He has 2 voter identification numbers that can be checked. I'm going to post them on my Facebook, and anybody that's interested can actually go to the INEC website and verify that these voter identification numbers belong to Mr. Tokunbo Abiru.
What about the allegations of murder? And if you don't mind, let me land the point. I was going to say that what purpose do these allegations serve other than distracting us from the issue at hand?
Listen, registering twice to vote in an election, I don't think that should be allowed. I mean, it should be one man, one vote. We've gone to court over this matter. This is not a mere allegation. We've gone to court. Okay, we're in court over it. And I believe that the judiciary will do what is right as far as this is concerned. There's also the issue that Mr. Abiru cannot even vote in this election himself. He's not qualified to vote. He's not registered in Lagos East Senatorial District. He's registered in Lagos Central. He cannot vote for himself, and he wants people to vote for him. Now, we know what the Constitution says about eligibility for election. You have to be eligible to vote in an election in which you put yourself forward. These are issues that we've put forward before the court for the courts to determine as to whether he's qualified to participate in Look, we should not make laws merely for decoration. Okay, we should not make a nonsense of our laws. If we're a society of laws, if we're a country of laws, then we should operate those laws and not, give ourselves over to the noise of the marketplace.
We're talking about Lagos, of course, and Lagos is definitely, over the last 2 months at the very least, been a cesspool of a lot of change on the ground. Nobody is exempt from knowing or experiencing what happened on the streets of Lagos State. And I just wanted to ask what side you're on when it comes to EndSARS and the calls for the end of impunity, calls for the end of police brutality. If you could give us a bit more background on where you lie, whether or not you think that those protesters acted inappropriately, or whether you think they had every right to be on the streets and that there is real need for change when it comes to police brutality, not only in Lagos, but indeed across Nigeria.
Besides the fact that I'm a veteran of police brutality myself, I'm a veteran victim, so to speak, of police brutality myself. If you look at this scar on my forehead, can you see it right there, this one?
Yes.
That came from a mobile policeman smashing a bottle of Coke across my forehead while I was a student of LASU. That was the traumatic incident that led to me leaving LASU. So I've experienced police brutality firsthand. I know exactly how it feels. Of course, I don't know how it felt for those that died as a result of police brutality at the hands of SARS. So I align myself completely with the protesters, the peaceful protesters of EndSARS. And I am totally against the action taken by the Nigerian army at the behest of the APC-led Lagos State government to go and shoot the protesters at the Lekki toll gate. So, in my opinion, it was a brutal action that is reminiscent of the time when we were under military dictatorship. And this is a democracy. It should not be allowed. If we cannot enforce our rights under Nigerian law, under the Nigerian government, then we have to go to the United Nations. We have to appeal to the international community to ostracize the individuals that made decisions that led to that pogrom, because that's what it is. Aside from the massacre at the Lekki toll gate, there were also killings across Lagos State. Across Lagos State, Mushin, Surulere, Ojo, people were shot at and killed, by policemen, by security agents. These issues have to be dealt with. Nothing must be swept under the carpet.
All right.
Nothing.
All right, Babatunde. How will you judge INEC so far following the elections, one that was held in Edo State and then another in Ondo State? What areas would you want INEC to improve upon, not just because of your own election, coming up on Saturday, but for purposes of making our electoral experience much more credible, free and fair?
Number one, I'd like to look at the issue of voter registration. I think that INEC have dropped the ball on that one. They call it continuous voter registration, but like Nigeria's federalism, it's just written on paper, okay? Nigeria is not a federation. INEC does not do continuous voter registration. But they've put it out there that we're doing continuous voter registration. Since the election ended in 2019, they have not registered a single soul on the electors register. Okay? We need to continue registering people. We cannot disenfranchise our people. Of the maybe 7 million or so people living in Ikorodu, maybe about 500,000 are registered on the INEC register. That is unfair. People are being disenfranchised, and that should be addressed. Now, as to the actual election day operations, INEC need to be a little more transparent. The direct transmission of results from the polling units straight to the central server, which should be exposed to the public, we should all be seeing it live. It should not be hidden. It should not be something that only electoral officers can see, and so on and so forth. Everything that we can do to make these elections transparent must be done. I cannot say 100% that I trust INEC or that they will have the sensitive materials ready at the right time, or that, polling units that for instance, I have some areas in Ekpe that are offshore, so to speak. They're in riverine areas, very hard to access, and they've gone and put 80 polling units in this one ward that is totally inaccessible. Okay? So what happens is some political parties will go there and go and thumbprint overnight and then load the ballot boxes with fake votes. Like, for instance, I'm aware that a political party, a certain political party, has shipped people in to Lagos East from other senatorial districts with the sole purpose of using fake voter cards to participate in this election. We are monitoring these things. We are watching what's going on. And we are going to take every necessary action to ensure that the election is not, manipulated.
Okay, just following on and speaking on transparency and maybe a more representative electoral process, I want to ask, because I'm curious, your publicity secretary, Tajik Ghani, seemed to be confident and made a projection of 60%, 65% lead, and says this is according to polls. Why are you so certain, and why should we trust these polls he's referring to, that you're confident?
Well, if you look at the events of the last month or so in Lagos, people have suddenly come to a realization that the APC is actually, their full name is actually All Palliatives Choppers, because they kept all the palliatives that were meant to be used to help people through the COVID-19 pandemic period. They kept them in warehouses, hid them away from the people, and people were left to starve. They wanted to use those palliatives, by their own words, as giveaways on their birthdays. At least my representative in Ikorodu, the House of Assembly member representing Ikorodu Constituency 1, said as much in a press release that he, wrote himself, that he wanted to use the palliatives as birthday giveaways. I personally think that Lagosians are actually fed up and tired to the teeth of these people in the APC. They are wicked, they are evil. There's nothing, that they can use to redeem themselves in the eyes of Lagosians. Lagosians are fed up. They want them gone. So Taufik Ghani was merely being conservative when he said 65%. I believe it's more in the region of about 95%.
In that case, can I ask how confident you are in the transparency of these elections? How certain you feel the process will be definitely legal and transparent?
That exactly is the rub. We've had, you know about, these so-called National Union of Transport Workers people, the so-called thugs. We've heard that their leader has been moving around. He was in Koshofe on Thursday to, ginger up his so-called troops and tell them to shoot at and harass PDP activists as they go around campaigning and so on. And I've had the experience of having a gun nearly pulled on me in Shomolu. We were attacked at Ibonwo in Ekpe just on Sunday. In Ikorodu yesterday, some of them attempted to attack us at a place called Egbin, where the power station is, and also at Ijede. So we are aware that the APC are counting on violence. They're counting on buying votes. We've seen them do this in Osun State. At the Osun State elections, the BBC captured them in Ekiti doing the same thing, okay? So we know that they're counting on using our own money to buy our votes, but our people are ready. We are waiting for them. Bring the money to the polling units and see what happens to you.
All right, Babatunde, I'm sure that you will agree that quite some bits of what you're saying are allegations that are yet to be proven. You have no evidence to support that. But let me ask you, let me ask you this question, because that's very important to state. If the election does not go your way or in favor of you, will you dust yourself up and come back again and try to contest, or will you take recourse to the courts, as is the case among politicians?
We will do everything legally possible to make sure that we win the elections. These elections cannot be trifled with. These elections cannot be manipulated. We will resist every attempt to manipulate these elections. They have done it in the past and gotten away with it. I remember famously Mr. Bola Ahmed Tinubu saying, "Kurukwe Lalo." I remember him saying that. I remember him confessing that they won only 5 local governments out of the 20 in Lagos State at the presidential election. There's a video to that effect circulating on YouTube. I have a copy of that video, him confessing openly that they won only 20 local governments, they won only 5 local governments out of the 20 in the presidential elections in 2019. So we know what they're about. We know what they do. We know what they're up to. This time, we will be ready.
All right. Thank you so much, Babatunde Gbadamosi there.